Can you hear me, Ahmed? How about now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Not happening. These audios. Okay. Nope. I'm gonna hang up and try again.
Yeah, the board met in closed session to discuss two items. First,
we were muted.
Oh,
we were muted. Oh,
Howard.
well, that'll do it.
Yeah.
All right, he'll be back in a second. Go ahead. Al.
the first item discussed in the closed session was conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation pursuant to government code section 54956.9 D2. One item, and the second item, appointment of public employee general manager pursuant to government code section 54957. Both items were discussed and there is no reportable action.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
the problem was at our end, Meg. We had you on mute.
Okay. Thanks.
Meg's here.
Are there any additions to deletions, amendments to the agenda
None from staff.
from the directors? None. Instructions to allow public comment on agenda items from those attending this meeting via teleconference or video conference. Do we have anybody?
We have members of the public, but none have comments.
None have expressed comments?
Well, they don't know because he hasn't read the instructions
Yes,
yet.
then I'll read the instructions. If at any point anyone would like to ask a question or make a comment and have joined this meeting via with their computer, they can click the raised hand button located at the bottom of the screen. We will be alerted that they would like to speak. When called upon, please unmute the microphone and ask the question or make your comments in no more than 3 minutes. Those who have joined by dialing a number on their telephone will need to press *6 to unmute themselves, then *9 to alert us that they would like to speak. A slight pause will also be offered at the conclusion of each agenda item discussion to allow public members an opportunity to make comments or ask questions. Oral or written communications from the public, opportunity for members of the public to address the board on items not on the agenda. Do we have any oral or written communications?
Are those speaker slips for a specific item?
They're for
Okay.
specific items.
We have not received any written communications for items not on this agenda.
Okay,
Anybody online?
No members of the public.
all right. Thank you very much. I'll forgo reading all the rigmarole on the speaker slips. Employee recognition. Excellent coin award.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things to do. We've got another employee who's reached all
Ooh.
5 coins.
Wow.
Justin Demery, who's here. Justin is a U3 worker for us, and he runs a lot of our construction crews. I don't know, Justin, is there anybody who works more leaks and duty and overtime than you do here at the district? I don't think so, because if you're ever out late at night, you're more than likely to find Justin, one of the guys. And as you can see, he was in a wet, muddy hole earlier today, or else he showed up like that to work.
Impressive.
Going with that. But I've always appreciated Justin's forthright attitude to getting stuff done, and also speaking up when things could be done better, and working cooperatively with everybody to make positive changes. And that's reflected by him being nominated for all 5 coins from his coworker. So congratulations, Justin.
Yeah. Thank you, Justin.
Good job, Justin.
Item number 16, approval of the minutes from the May 23rd, 2023 regular board meeting.
I'd make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Moved by Director Gasca, seconded by Director Mack. We have to do roll call since he's remote.
Director Gasca,
Aye.
Director Hamilton,
Aye.
Director Johnson. Aye. Director Mack
Aye.
and Director Townsend Smith.
Aye.
Thank you.
Board of Directors comments and reports. President's report. The first thing I have to do is, as you saw with Justin, we had the Corin Excellent Coins Award. They're represented up here, but every member of the board and every member of the staff actually gets a universal card coin. And it's my pleasure to welcome Julie to the Board of Directors and
Thank you.
receive her coin.
Wow, thank you.
And that's all I have to report today.
True.
Representatives report, San Diego County Water Authority.
All right. Well, there's been 2 meetings since our last board meeting, May 25th, and then last Thursday. Much of the discussion for both meetings was on the budget and the rate increase that the Water Authority is pushing through. As you may recall, earlier this year in one of my reports, when the Water Authority came out with a just under 14% proposed rate increase, but the city of San Diego came out and said, we will not accept anything over 10%. I predicted that somehow miraculously they would get it under 10%, and they would claim a political victory by approving a 9.5 or 9.9% rate increase, which is terrible. Well, they tried to get there, but at the May meeting, they unveiled a new way to calculate the rate increase. Since 2004, the Water Authority has used what they call the all-in treated rate. It's a melded treatment rate of both fixed and variable charges divided by acre feet. It's an imperfect calculation, but it's the same calculations that's been used for almost 20 years and through this whole rate setting process until May, at which point they pulled out a new thing called the effective rate. Now, some can argue, and I understand that the effective rate calculation is somewhat better as a calculation, but what came out at the May and again at the June meetings is that using the same rate calculation that they started this process with at 13.7%, the real all-in treated rate increase is about 12.5%. But they came up with a new bit of math to say, no, the effective rate is only 9.5%. And so it got them under the 10% number, which was politically convenient for the city of San Diego, who proceeded to shove that through last week. I think there were 10 agencies who voted against it, including ours and a number of others. And I think some of I can't speak for all the board members, but all those involved voted both against the budget and the rate increase, mainly because of the lack of transparency on what was going on. And if you may have seen, the Padre Dam Board took a position and sent a letter and variety of things indicating that the Water Authority isn't getting real with its demand forecasts. And they're continuing to fail to accommodate declining water use, local supply development that's coming up and things like that. And that even in this budget and this rate modeling they're doing, they're forecasting sales to go up 50,000 acre feet over the next 5 years. The sales have been going down for the last 20 years. And their argument that it's going to go up is population growth. But as we've seen here, a lot more people live in this district than did 5 or 6 years ago, yet we use less water. And so population growth in San Diego County has been going steadily up or flat for the last 20 years, but demands have been going down. And so it's really a disingenuous argument for them to continue to push on everybody there. And so, you know, the challenge with the Water Authority is the city of San Diego rules the roost. They have the majority block there. They get a couple other agencies to go with them, and 3 or 4 agencies can push through whatever they want. So even if 10, 12, 14, there was one vote I was on a couple of years ago where there were 20 agencies opposed, but the city was able to push it through. 20 out of 24 member agencies opposed. And so we're kind of stuck with it. So starting next year, the Water Authority's rates are going to go up precipitously. One key thing that you see in their rate structure is the treatment rate. You know, the treatment rate now is going way above almost $400. You know what the exact number is, Tracy? I think it's around $400 an acre foot, which is
409.
bonkers. You know, the deal we were working out with Weiss, they treat water there for $140, $150 an acre foot. Now they're talking 400. It's because they've got stranded assets in the Twin Oaks plant because it's built for 100 MGD, but never puts out more than about 20. And then they've also got the desal water, which is ridiculously expensive. So it was a disappointing, long 7.5 hour meeting, but I did get a giggle at the end. Toward the end of the meeting, they had 2 closed session items, one for the replacement of their GM who was retiring at the end of this week, and the other on initiation of litigation, which didn't say what it was, and inquiries to their general counsel and staff prior to the meeting didn't provide us any clues. But I did get a clue at the end of the regular meeting when they came up to me, their general counsel, and said that I have to leave the room for the closed session on initiation of litigation, which signals that the Water Authority is planning to sue under the Brown Act. For those who don't know, there's a section like we had, anticipated litigation, which is when you expect to get sued by somebody else. And then there's if you want to actually sue someone else, you have to notice that you're planning to get authorization to sue someone. And so we had about an hour closed session on the GM recruitment process, and then went back into open session so I could make a few public comments. And then they went back into closed session, at which point I left, as did Jack Beebe from Fallbrook. About 20 minutes later, we noticed that other board members were leaving the area. Well, some of us meet for a beer after long meetings at a butcher shop. And a couple of these people come in, hey, what's going on? What happened? It turns out that after we left, and there was a full boardroom when we left, one by one, board members started getting up and leaving, and to the point where they lost a quorum. And I did confirm this to the general counsel that no action was taken because they've lost a quorum. And it's it was amusing. If I know with this board, if I ever brought something to initiate litigation against another party, that's a pretty important step for a public agency to take. And you make dang sure. And I know Jeff on the North County Fire Board knows that you don't do that lightly, and you make sure you've got a quorum of people there. But now the Water Authority is going to initiate litigation against someone, whether it's Rainbow, Fallbrook, LAFCO, we don't know, but it's related to detachment because we were both asked to leave, and they failed to do so. So next month, I imagine they'll take another run at it.
Thank you, Tom. CSDA report.
Nothing at this moment.
Okay. LAFCO report.
July 10th, 8 a.m. is the next meeting where they'll hear the detachment proposals. Although we might try to get Jim Desmond to move the time, but on their website it says 8 a.m. right now. So anyone who's in earshot who has an opinion either way is encouraged to come down and let the commission know what they think. I know I'll be there.
Yep. Thank you. Santa Margarita Watershed Water Master Steering Committee will meet in July. Nothing to report. Aqua.
Yeah. I think I'd noted in a past meeting that I had attended a workshop for Aqua that was dealing with upcoming legislative initiatives. And I think in follow-up to that, there's what's called the quenchcalifornia.com website, which has a number of tools, a toolkit to help, I guess, districts get the word out about the need for infrastructure in California. And so everybody that, on the board gets a Aqua newsletter. There's more information on that in there. There's actually going to be let's see, town hall for, let me get to it real fast. There's going to be Aqua president and vice president candidates town hall, July 19th at 2 p.m. And there's a code so you can scan in to register if you want to attend and listen to what the candidates have to say. What was it? Vista, I guess, made it into the report that they send out because of their anniversary. And I think that's about it for right now.
Okay,
I
thank
know
you.
that Tracy and Julie will be at the Aqua Region 10 event on Thursday. And it's just, I met with Sarah Hodge last Friday for a lunch meeting just to go over Aqua and how they can help us with. She was in town, and so she's their regional, whatever her title is, she's the regional rep for Aqua in Southern California.
Meetings, workshops, committees, seminar, reports by directors, AB 1, 2, 3, 4. I can report that I have successfully completed my biannual harassment training. I'm not qualified to harass anybody I want. Anybody else?
Yeah, I did the same. There was two requirements that Dawn and Carlene helped me get to online, got those completed. So we should be able to maintain our district excellence level.
I also completed the 2 trainings.
Okay. Great. Director's comments. None. Next is legal comments. Before Alfred steps in, I'd like to point out that we have a copy of an LA Times report of legal visionaries in which Alfred Smith, our lawyer,
Nice.
is prominently recognized.
Nice job.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I really appreciate that. That was quite an honor. So I did a written report and update on a new appellate court decision addressing Proposition 218, water rates, and Senate Bill 323 that was passed a couple years ago. And this particular decision involved a class action against the East Bay Municipal Utilities District, the big water district up in the Oakland, San Bay area in Northern California. The plaintiffs argued that the district's tiered water rates violated Proposition 218 because of the way they divided up the tiers, unfairly charged certain classes of customers. But the Court of Appeal rejected the claims before they even got to the substantive issue on a procedural ground, basically holding that the claims were barred by a very short 120-day statute of limitations under Public Utilities Code Section 14402. And so this case is important because there have been different trial courts that were just kind of falling, reaching different conclusions on this issue, because some were saying, well, each time a new bill is issued or a bill is paid, that's a new kind of transaction, creating a new statute of limitations, therefore triggering a new claim, but this case rejected that. They looked at what they call the gravamen, of the case. They said, well, if you're challenging, for a particular water bill, you had a defect, there was an error in the calculation, that's a refund, but you're essentially challenging the actual rates. And so the appellate court said for that type of claim, the statute of limitations run from the date the board of directors approves the rates and adopts a resolution. So whatever that effective date is, the resolution, that's when the statute of limitations run. And it's interesting because this public utilities code section they applied previously only applied to certain special districts. It didn't apply to water districts. But some of you may remember there was that class action suit a few years ago where they brought in 80 water districts across the state, including us. And we successfully demurred to that. And as part of that, we joined a coalition with Aqua, and Aqua got to this bill passed, Senate Bill 3223, that shortened the statute of limitations to provide, greater certainty in planning for fiscal, the district's fiscal budget. So this SB 322 now confirms that, the statute of limitations applies to municipal water districts, but it doesn't apply automatically. So it's a reminder that whenever our Proposition 218 notices go out to customers, it has to give notice that, there's a 120-day statute of limitations under 323 that applies. So that's my legal update. Concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Committee reports, Budget and Finance Committee.
I can take that one. So we met and it was a quick meeting. We went through a presentation by Chad Williams on meter downsizes and how we compare to neighboring districts and what our current policy is. And there was no action from that. Tom gave a detachment update, which we'll get here later in the meeting. I gave an update on how the interim audit was going and the responses to our wastewater loan request for proposals.
Thank you. Engineering and operations did not meet, I understand. And
Yeah.
they did?
Next month there.
They're not meeting in July. They met in June and now.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Sorry, Chad.
Filling in for Flint, who is traveling abroad right now. Yes, the Engineering and Operations Committee did meet on June 7th. Agenda item number 29 on the board's consent calendar was reviewed by the committee, and the committee did make a recommendation that the board approve it. Item 24, also on today's agenda, was not prepared in time for this meeting, and therefore the committee did not take action. And that is all to report from Engineering and Operations Committee.
Okay, Communication and Customer Services Committee.
Yeah, so the Customer Service and Communications Committee met on June 1st. Tom introduced our new administrative analyst who's going to be dealing with communications, Amanda Weber, who's recently joined the district, and she's getting off to a great start. Tom also gave an update on the LAFCO process. It was before the June 5th LAFCO meeting. I updated the committee on our customer service survey results, which were we had at the Avocado Festival, but it's still open for input. We're going to be adding it to our website, and it's been promoted in the last 2 newsletters. We also discussed the newsletter content of the articles that we want to publish in both the June and July newsletters, since we'll have the July one done before the July Communications Committee meeting takes place. And then the submetering outreach update, we did determine a method of sending direct mailers to people who live in an HOA apartment or some other place where they have sort of indirect billing. It's built into their rent or their HOA fees or something like that. So we do have a way to communicate with them through direct mail, not through email, because we don't have those, but we do have the addresses and the quantities. So we gave an update on that. And we talked about the media stories, which was one promoting the town hall, the Division 1 board vacancy, the CAL FIRE vegetation management grant that we're pursuing. There was an article in the Village News regarding the Bonsall High School field trip that came here. And that was pretty much it.
Great. Thank you, Carlene. Appreciate that. Just to the comment to the audience, this is a way, the committees are a way for you to get directly involved and have input into the board's decisions and things like that. So it's a volunteer group. but I would strongly encourage, if you have the time and interest, to participate in any one of the three committees. Okay, we'll move to the public hearing. Item number 19. Essentially, the board, the public hearing to consider adoption of ordinance 23-03, establishing readiness to serve water service standby assessment or availability charges for all the Rainbow Municipal Water District Improvement District 1 is now open. All persons wishing to be heard should have submitted a speaker slip to the board secretary or may indicate their wish to speak now. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. Please speak slowly and clearly. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes in length. Those attending in person are asked to make their comments from the lectern or using the microphone provided so that they can be heard by those attending remotely, as well as accurately recorded for the purposes of preparing meeting minutes. At this time, for presentation of testimony, no debate. This is a time for presentation of testimony. No debate is allowed. To the board secretary, are there any written materials or comments that have been submitted or that anyone wishes to submit without speaking?
We have not received any.
Okay, we'll take public comments at this time. I have 2 speaker slips.
Are the speaker slips for this item or for the water and wastewater hearing that occurred right after
Actually, I
this?
think they're probably for the rates.
Probably.
So
Okay.
does staff wish to respond to any subjects raised by any speaker or make any additional statements?
I think the main thing for this charge is the same charge that's been on the property tax
Mhm.
bill for 30, how long, Don? Was it since the 90s?
I believe so, since
Yeah.
before I was here.
Yeah, so, and this is just assessed every year. We do this once a year, $10.54 a parcel or acre per year. And this hasn't changed or gone up in several decades.
At this time, any board member may ask any question of any speaker or staff. Are there any questions from the board?
No.
Does anyone in the audience have any comments solely to clarify any item raised by the board members' questions? We had none, so we'll skip that. Board discussion, if there being no further testimony, I'll close the public testimony portion of the hearing. Is there any further discussion by board members? Hearing none, is there any further recommendations or comments from staff?
Nope.
It is now in order for the board to discuss this matter and for a board member to make a motion to take action. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
I'll second.
Moved by Director Gasca, seconded by Director Mack. This requires a roll call vote.
And this is to approve option 1.
Option 1.
Run.
Director Gasca,
Aye.
Director Hamilton,
Aye.
Director Johnson. Aye. Director Mack
Aye.
and Director Townsend Smith.
Abstain.
Thank you.
This concludes the public hearing for this matter. Moving on to item number 20, rate hearing. The public hearing to consider adoption of ordinance 23-04, authorizing increases in the rates for Rainbow Municipal Water District service fees effective July 1st, 2023 are now open. All persons wishing to be heard should have submitted a speaker slip to the board secretary or may indicate their wish to speak now. I have 2 speaker slips. Are there any other additions?
Also, in the past, we've done the presentation of the cost of service study and then had the speakers speak after that. So they
After
have
that?
opportunity to comment on anything we present.
Okay. Now you've messed me up. Hey, should we move to the presentation and then resume the comment?
Is there any?
I'm sorry, we're following a legal procedure here and
I'm not, Is there a need to open the public hearing and hear comment now, or can we proceed with the presentation first? Okay,
Why don't we, then we'll proceed with the presentation and then I will reopen the
Okay.
meeting
Thank
for
you.
discussion.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'll be going through the cost of service study and the results of the rates with you. So our rate setting process starts pretty early. We started this last October after we looked at the results from fiscal year 22. We every year after we get the year end completed and the audit is completed, we address the need to either do a new cost of service study or update the existing study. We determined that we needed to update the existing study. So December through January, we did the data gathering with our consultant. In February, we had financial plan workshop at our budget and finance committee with IB Consulting. And then in March and April, we came to the board with different options and asked for direction on which one to move forward with. April 25th, we opened the rate hearing. And at that time, we mailed out over 10,000 notices to all the property owners in our district, advertised the rate hearing on the website, in our district newsletter, and also in the village news. So some of the challenges we identified during this time were hyperinflation, increased fuel and utility costs, supply chain delays through COVID. And then as some of you may recall, we delayed rate increases during detachment and COVID. Detachment has ended up taking a lot longer than we had thought it would take. And we're going on 3 years now. We actually absorbed some of the San Diego County Water Authority cost increases to mitigate rate increases on our customers. That was over $1 million. And we had to pause on account collections and shutoffs during our billing software implementation, and legally during COVID, we weren't allowed to do collections or shutoffs on customers. And that resulted in people stopped paying their bills, which was obviously a challenge for us. Unfortunately, we're at the point now where we've depleted reserves and our rate stabilization funds. Now, we did have some successes during that time. We held the operating budget flat, only allowing for inflationary increases. We were able to decrease the San Diego County Water Authority transportation costs that they charge. This saved us almost $750,000 a year for the amount that we had switched over during that time from fiscal year 21 to 23. We're still working on switching over that last 25% with our wholesale water efficiency projects. It's a significant savings. We re-implemented shutoffs this last March, and we're able to increase account collections now, which really helps us start to rebuild our reserves. We also renegotiated some contracts and worked on some CIP projects that help us with leaks and emergency issues that can come up. So the cost of service study, we contracted with IB Consulting to do a full water and wastewater cost of service study. So when we do these studies, all the inputs are updated. So meter counts, developer fees, reserve levels, what sales have been, et cetera. And then we determine what our key assumptions are. Let me go back one. Sorry about that. So these rates are reevaluated every year. We're looking to do a proposed 5-year rate increase. And then every year we go back through this process to see if things have changed from the assumptions that we put out there the year before. So for example, if we get a significant developer fee come in, let's say $10 million, and that's going to have a pretty big change to what our rate is going to be that year. So every year when we do that, as part of this process, we meet with the Budget and Finance Committee. It's a really interactive process with our customers, and we really encourage public input in that process. We take options to the committee, and then we take their recommendation to the board and get their input, and then determine what our course of action is. So our key assumptions with this rate increase, we are projecting sales at 12,700 acre feet, which is where we're coming in this year. 0 account growth and 0 developer fees. So this is a very conservative assumption. With the stagnation in the building market, we aren't projecting anything that we don't already have in our bank account. we've seen a lot of delays with different developments. We're working with 5 or 6 different developers, but until we actually have the money, we don't want to include that in our cost of service study. These are our cost escalations we used for the cost of service. You can see the different amounts we are escalating salaries and capital over the next 5 years. Energy has had a significant increase, so we have our current rate and then we're escalating it at 5%. And then we also have our pass-through increases. The water authorities doesn't go into effect until next January, but that will be passed through at that time, depending on what our situation is. And the wastewater treatment costs from the city of Oceanside for our wastewater processing. So best practices would be at the ideal target level. This is where we're working to get our reserves. We want to keep them at a higher level because of possible inflationary spikes, emergencies, or unknown events happening simultaneously. So right now we've depleted our reserves. This plan works towards getting them up to the ideal target over a 5-year period. Okay, we'll start with wastewater. The current financial plan and rates do not cover operating costs or include funding for capital projects. So this is based on our current rates. The district has a remaining capital commitment of $5 million for our Thoroughbred lift station in fiscal year 24. And then we're going to be taking a pause on wastewater projects in fiscal year 25 while we build reserves back up and then resume capital again in year 3 through 5. So this is our capital plan for wastewater. I apologize, it's a little bit small here. This is our wastewater fund projection. Each column, so the first column has our approved budget. The second one is our forecast. And you can see we had 8 million come in from Citro. That was a developer fee out east of the 15 for that development. We have another 2.5 million coming in fiscal year 24 from that. And then we're proposing a $5 million loan to do some gap financing while we finish up the Thoroughbred lift station project. So you can see here, we're building back up the reserves over 5 years. If no developer fees are received, then we do plan on doing an additional debt financing in year 3. So again, this is very conservative. We are factoring in 0 developer fees, and we do hope that's not the case. So these are the wastewater options that we presented. We did one with a deferred CIP plan and one with a planned CIP that's debt financed, and staff and the board directed us to go forward with option 2. You can see what the dollar amounts are down on that second line. It's right now it's $55 per EDU, and it will be going up to $66. That is a 35% increase, but you'll see in this next slide, it really brings us up closer to what our neighboring districts pay. So this is a comparison to neighboring districts by equivalent dwelling units. So for comparison, if you had a home in Oceanside that was just under 2,000 square feet, and you moved to Water District, to Rainbow Water, and bought a home the same size, you would be paying $66. In Oceanside, that's actually closer to $90. And I offer that comparison because we do get a lot of that where people will move out here and compare their bill, but they don't realize that they've purchased a significantly larger home out here that requires more EDUs. So if you do the EDU to EDU comparison, we are still very competitive, even with a 35% rate increase. And that comes from us working to keep our costs down. Okay, now we're going to move from wastewater to water. The current water rates are not sufficient to fund capital projects or maintain long-term solvency. By fiscal year 26, reserves would be depleted. So this is based on our current rates. This is our operating revenue compared to expenses based on our current rates. This is a pie chart of our spending by category. You can see that 46% is water purchases, 18 is capital projects. So those are the big pieces of the pie there. This is our water purchases over the last 2+ decades, and you can see a significant decline. We were up over 30,000 acre feet 20 years ago, and now we're closer to 13,000. That's for water purchases. Okay, again, I apologize for the small print here, but this is our 5-year water capital plan. The majority of the spending is for the wholesale water efficiency projects that have a positive ROI due to the elimination of that transportation charge that I talked about earlier. And these are also nice for when we do emergency shutdowns, we'll no longer have to do temporary pumps. So that's the significant portion of this at 6 million in year 1. And then we're also finishing up the Rice Canyon pipeline. Okay, this is the 5-year projected fund balance based on the proposed rate increases for water. You can see by the end of the 5 years, we're up closer to that ideal target, assuming all the assumptions come in exactly as we have them. And it also assumes no developer fees. Notice in year 3 towards the bottom, we're also reestablishing a rate stabilization fund. That's so important. That's the fund we used when we first started detachment and COVID hit. Those are the funds we tapped in order to delay rate increases. Okay, so this is the water financial plan with the new proposed rates. The comprehensive cost of service study determined that the current rates would be inaccurate to provide revenues to operate, maintain, and replace the system assets. So the required revenue increase of 9% over 5 years are needed to meet the district's future obligations and ensure safe, reliable water supplies are available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So the design considerations we looked at included moving more of our costs to the fixed portion of your rate as opposed to just the variable rate. So what this does is it stabilizes our revenue recovery in a climate of declining sales. So if we don't do this now, decreased demands will automatically or naturally push us to that. And I'm going to give you a visual of that. It's a really hard concept to understand in this next slide. So this graph represents sales by customer class over the last 10 years. The orange is commercial, the green is agriculture, and the blue is residential, which has remained pretty flat despite all the growth we've had out east of the 15 and throughout our district. People are using less water, houses are more efficient. Over the last 10 years, that green section, ag, has dropped by 50%. No one could have predicted that that was going to drop by 50% in 10 years. So it's vital that we consider the possibility of this decline continuing and understand the impact of a loss of ag on residents in the district. So in light of that, we went through 5 different options with affordability and stabilizing or delaying the decline of ag in mind, we analyzed these 5 different scenarios. Moving more of the total bill to the fixed charge creates a more stable revenue recovery. So rate increase scenarios 1 through 3 are driven by the percent of cost recovery that's put on the fixed portion. You can see that second column has basically 38, 39, or 38, 40, and 42% being on the fixed portion of the bill. Each of these are based on projected sales of 12,700. Scenario 4 represents ag dropping again by half, which is important for us to look at that. Scenario 5 represents if ag were to go away. So we wanted to see what the revenue adjustment requirement would be in those 2 situations as well. So I'm going to go through each of those. So scenario 1, this one's a more stable revenue recovery. It's less impactful on ag and delays the risk of scenario 4 and 5. The disadvantages of this one is it is more impactful on residential. You can see in the top annual impact, 30% of residential families would have a 15 to 20% bill impact. That's an average customer bill of about a $20 per month increase for a 3/4 inch meter. Okay, scenario 2, it's also more stable revenue recovery, but it's not quite as advantageous as scenario 1. So it does delay the risk of scenario 4 and 5, but not as well as scenario 1. This would be about an $18 a month impact for a 3/4 inch meter. And then scenario 3, a little bit lower fixed cost recovery. This would be an $18 per month difference on a monthly bill. And then scenario 4 and 5 were just what's going to happen if we continue to see these declines in ag. Sorry.
Siri
Yes.
wants in.
So scenario 4, you can see it's a significant impact on residential. So it is something we want to really delay if possible. Also scenario 5, there's no impact with ag because ag would essentially be gone in that scenario. So the board selected scenario 1 for the rate hearing noticing. Moving more of the rate to the fixed charge spreads the costs of maintaining the entire system more evenly over all the customers, regardless of the volume they use. It also, like I said, it does delay that 4 or 5, which would have a significant increase on rates. You can see there 12 and 16% for 4 and 5. Those are revenue adjustment projections. Those aren't rate increases. The actual rates for residents, if ag were to go away, would be about a doubling of your bill. So with scenario 1, we did the actual rate impacts and included those in our rate noticing. So these are the bill impacts for a single family residential customer based on low, average, and high usage. You can see that one in the middle is the average. People out here in our area use a lot of water. This isn't very representative of our more dense areas like Horse Creek Ridge or Citro, where they use maybe 5 to 10 units a month. But again, it for everyone, it's about a $20 per month increase. We understand that affordability is a major concern with, inflation and prices going up on everything. And that's why the district delayed rate increases for so long. But we're now at a point where we can't do that anymore. Our revenues and our reserves are too low to continue to delay rate increases. Okay, this slide is just some reasons to recap for the rate increase. We can't continue to operate at a deficit with diminishing reserves, and it's our fiduciary duty to ensure that financial solvency into the future, and this rate ordinance does that. Okay, so staff recommends the adoption of ordinance 23-04 as of July 1st, 2023.
Can I add
Questions?
into what Tracy said there, just to emphasize that this is based on a worst case scenario of decrease in demands in the future and no new customers, no development. I don't expect that to be the case. We're talking to a number of developers right now who are looking to build, but we don't want to put all our eggs in that pot. So the likelihood of actually raising rates by the amount that we're asking for the maximum is very, very small. But we did want to put that on the table so everybody understands the situation that we find ourselves with. And it also doesn't include us applying for or getting any grant funding. We're in line for different grants that we're working on from the feds and the state, who are much better at taking money than giving it back. So it's hard. But any of those other things come in, then the future rate increases will be much less. Detachment will help too.
Yeah, I was going to say that this is taking a worst case scenario, and that since we have no clear definitive date on when and if detachment will occur, this rate model is built around staying within the water authority. If we're able to successfully detach, then we can recast all of this stuff because we have a different rate structure from the supplier.
Tracy?
Yes.
So what kind of an impact would you mentioned $10 million, okay, coming in from a developer. What kind of an impact would that have on the percent increase that you would see? Whether it would, how would it lower it?
Well, there'd be a couple different options we could do with that. And that's where I stress the importance of ratepayers, customers coming in and having some input on the process, because we could either delay the increase for 2 years. We could, keep it flat for 2 years. We could take some of that, there's just a lot of different options we could do. We could do half of the rate increase and condense the amount of time it takes us to build those reserves back up. Having the reserves below the target level, it's not a good place to be in if we run into an emergency. So we just have to determine what the priorities are and, where we're at with affordability with our customers.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? I'll go back to
the script.
script. Essentially, I'll start at the beginning just to refresh everybody's mind. The public hearing is to consider adopting ordinance 23-04, authorizing increases in the rates for Rainbow Municipal Water District service fees effective July 1st, 2023 is now open. All persons wishing to be heard should have submitted a speaker slip to the board secretary or may indicate their wish to speak now. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. Please speak slowly and clearly. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes in length. Those attending in person are asked to make their comments from the lectern or using the microphone provided so that they can be heard by those attending remotely, as well as accurately recorded for the purposes of preparing meeting minutes. This is the time for presentation of testimony. No debate is allowed. Are there any written materials that have been submitted that anyone wishes to, or that anyone wishes to submit without speaking? We have none. Is that correct?
We have received 4 protest letters.
4 protest letters. At this time, the floor is open for comments from the public. I'll call people in the order that they would think. Carol? Give me 1 second here. Okay. When you get down to 30 seconds, I'll wave my hand. Just give you a heads up that you're in your last 30 seconds.
Okay. I mostly just wanted to let you know that I understand everything that's happening that you just mentioned about, everything's going up. But it is all about expectations. And I moved here a year ago from Orange County, and I noticed in your presentation that your comparison is about other San Diego County areas. And I might encourage you to do a field trip outside of our county, because the surprise that I got hit with, and I love Fallbrook. I came here for the elbow room and for everything that the lower density. I don't have somebody looking in my patio from the patio behind me. It's wonderful. But my bill in Irvine was $35 a month for a 200 square foot home, a 200 bigger square foot home than what I live in here. They had a budget, so their billing is kind of creative, or so it seemed to me, in that if your budget was based on 50 gallons per person per month, and if you hit your budget, you had one rate, which was half of this, just in terms of the usage rate. And then it goes up to the 4th tier, which is called a wasteful tier. And that's what it says on your bill. It's wasteful, water use. But you also got a little attaboy if you went under your budget, and you got a lower rate even than the base rate if you conserved. So it's kind of a shame that our lack of sales is about conservation, which San Diego does such a great job on, and that now that's killing us, and maybe a little playing with the rates and let the abusers of water pay more than they're paying, then flattening that out to everybody. The rest of the bill, so my first year here, I started thinking, well, maybe I can't take a shower every day. My bill is crazy. I did not expect to spend $130 a month on water when I was paying $31 a month on water. And the first month I actually did start to do Navy showers and turn off the water. And then I saw my bill and I had $5 in water usage. And the rest of that $120 was all the stuff you guys were just talking about. And I don't understand what's different. Irvine has hills too, and they have a pumping charge if you have a house that's, requires extra pumping. So some of that is there. I also get hit by my HOA, who I moved in and my HOA fee was $323 a month. They raised it within 2 months to $350, and now we're at $375. And what do you think they blame that on? Oh, the rising cost of water that the HOA needs to do all the, so I'm hit in more than one place, by the increase in water. So I now have 30 seconds left. So the other thing that I noticed in Orange County that we don't seem to have as much of here is ways to do recycled water. All the pipes are purple and Irvine for slopes and things like that. So reclaimed water. Car washes, you're not allowed to wash your car in Newport Beach unless you have reclaimed equipment. So everybody goes to the car wash that reclaims it. That's about, I think, all I can say in my 3 minutes.
Thank you. Rich Riggs, is that correct?
I missed the presentation before about this subject. rate increase. And now I have a lot better idea. But the area that I'm concerned about is wastewater. You know, it's going up 25% or 20% each year for the next 5 years. In the presentation, it said that the wastewater increase promotion side was 6%. I'm kind of concerned the magnitude of the increase on our rates, and I realize, you know, that you're kind of locked into the first year and you're going to look at it again, but it's such a significant increase if it does go up 20% a year for 5 years. And that's the only area that I really had a lot of concern, just knowing that it's a purchase service, a lot of it, but I guess there's a lot more to it now that I hear your comments about the transportation costs. It's a big part of that. So, you know, I just didn't have enough information to understand why it was going up that much.
Thank you. Does staff wish to respond to any subjects raised by any speaker or make any additional statements?
I guess I can really briefly to your comments on the difference between us and Irvine. You know, obviously we're much more rural. You know, we've got 9,000 customers spread out against 80 square miles, and Irvine is much more condensed. And so the district is, all the pipelines and all of our assets are owned by everybody here. And that's all the people that are here. And so that's why we try to get our committees involved and our board, who are all ratepayers, to help make these difficult decisions. Nobody wants to raise rates, but it just gets spread across a much smaller pool of people. And so there's no future in which we could have a $35 a month rate increase unless the County Board of Supervisors made it to where there was somebody looking into your back porch with a house right behind you. So that's one of our challenges we face here. With regard to the wastewater side of things, you know, we hadn't raised rates in 5 years, a combination of the COVID thing starting and a whole bunch of other stuff. But then part of our wastewater challenges go to an older system that's accommodating newer development, some of which dates back 35 years. And that some of the capacity fees that were paid 35 years ago didn't quite translate to modern times very well. And so we had significant reserves, but were gobbled up by the work you see going on over off where our project pump station is being built along the 76 at Thoroughbred Lane. And so that took our reserves way down, and everything got more expensive over the last several years. So it's regrettable to have to forecast to raise this much, but again, I don't expect any of these rate increases to be as high as they are. New development will come, but our thing is to plan for the worst and hope for the best, rather than plan for the best and get stuck with the worst. So I wouldn't expect anyone to see the rate increases meet the high values that are in this notification.
There is one other significant area where I think we're significantly different than a lot of probably almost all of the districts in Orange County, in that many of them have their own groundwater.
That's true as well.
And it's very close to the surface. Okay. And we're 100% dependent on imported water, and we're captive to County Water Authority. And so it's a situation where, and that's one of the reasons why we're seeking to leave the County Water Authority, because that's one of the best opportunities to reduce our water costs. Unfortunately, our, San Luis Rey River basin, such as it is, because it's really considered a underground river, that area is adjudicated, and it's not possible really to go and punch in wells and try and secure any of that water. And I think that's one of the the areas where we've been exploring how we can get to lower water and lower cost water. So
And
just wanted to add that.
in the last 6 years, we've explored every option that we could, looking at tapping into the San Luis Rey, cost effectiveness of recycling water. And the numbers just don't work out. The cost to do any of those projects is higher than buying water from the water authority. So it doesn't make an economic sense to pursue those routes. As frustrating as it is to watch that water go out to the ocean. But we'll continue to explore those. Those cost numbers can change with time. So
I don't think anybody in the room pays less for more percentage of their fixed versus variable costs than Director Hamilton, who has a water meter, pays the charge, but doesn't use any water, and he still pays that charge. So
yes,
I think he
my
feels the
rates are
pain.
forecast to go up 26.6% next year, and I get absolutely no value for it.
Yeah,
I have a well,
yeah.
but the economics associated with your property is such that it cost about, in order to take my water bill down, the only choice I have is to remove the lateral at about $4,000 to $5,000 expense. And if I decide to sell my property and the new owner decides to reestablish that connection, it's $27,000. So we keep the lateral control, there as insurance. And as we found out, it's very valuable when you have a emergency power shutoff. No electricity, no well, no water. And I can go out with my bolt cutters and cut that lock and pay the district $250 for doing so. And what you'll find in the fire districts, in the Lilac Fire, we had a fireman sitting in our driveway with a truck protecting our house, even though we were evacuated. The first thing they do is they go and turn on all your sprinklers. No electricity, no water. So in Lilac, we were evacuated. I got a call on Sunday that said the power was back on. We moved the horses back onto the property Monday morning, and my helper says there's no water. And that's how I found out about the sprinklers. So it's a cheap insurance policy is what we look at relative to paying the fixed costs with no variable. Anyway, enough for the sides. At this time, does any board member may ask any questions of any speaker or staff? No questions? Does anyone in the audience have any comments solely to clarify any item raised by a board member's questions? There being no further testimony, I'll close the public testimony portion of the hearing. Is there any further discussion by board members? Is there any further recommendations or comments from staff?
None from staff.
It is now in order that for the board to discuss this matter and for a board member to make a motion to take action. Is there a motion?
I so move.
I'll second. Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Hamilton. Roll call.
Is that to approve option one?
That's to approve option one.
Director Gasca,
Aye.
Director Hamilton,
Aye.
Director Johnson, Director Mack,
Aye.
Director Townsend Smith.
Aye.
Thank you.
This concludes the public hearing for this matter. Thank you, everybody. Item number 21, discussion and possible action to adopt resolution 23-12 approving the fiscal year 2023-2024 operating and capital improvements budget.
So this presentation is, there's no changes since you've seen it last, and majority of the slides are a duplicate from the presentation you've just seen. Some of them go in a little deeper to the department level expenses. Would the board like me to go through it?
No.
I have no need.
Okay. Essentially, there's no changes since the budget was presented to the board in the prior meeting. And we're just asking asking for you to approve the fiscal year 24 operating and capital budget based on the assumptions that were presented in the cost of service study.
So the, what it would show is exactly what you identified when you summarized dealing with the rate.
Absolutely.
Correct.
The only difference in this presentation is just more department level items that are unchanged since the last presentation to the board.
I don't have an issue with it, but I guess I would ask if there was anybody in the audience that might have some interest in that. It might be worthwhile to do that.
No comments? Do I have a motion?
So move.
Moved by Director Gaskus, seconded by Director Johnston. That's for option 1 or option to approve.
Option to approve, yes.
Roll call vote.
Director Gasca,
Aye.
Director Hamilton,
Aye.
Director Johnson, Director Mack,
Aye.
Director Townsend Smith.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item number 22, discussion and possible action to approve resolution 23-15, a resolution establishing classifications and monthly pay ranges for district employees and the general manager effective July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024.
Okay, so as the board knows, we have MOUs with our 3 bargaining units that were approved a couple of years ago. It's a 5-year term. The MOUs require that we adjust our pay grades, our salary grade structure, July 1 of each year, according to the most recent 12-month change in CPI for San Diego County. The most recent publication date was May of 2023, and the 12-month change was 5.2%. So this resolution would increase the minimums and maximums of the pay grades by 5.2% in accordance with the terms of the MOU. It's important to note that this does not equate to a 5.2% base pay increase for our staff. The MOU caps the base pay cost of living adjustment at 2% this year. So the difference just leaves room for merit increases for employees according to their performance evaluation ratings. This also changes 2 job classifications. We have a risk management officer position, which is currently vacant and open for recruitment. It's a single incumbent, meaning 1-person job. But we're proposing to create a series position that spans 3 grades so that we can potentially hire in at a lower grade and expand our potential pool of applicants, but then also offer 1 level higher than we previously had as a promotional pathway to make it attractive to potential applicants who might be willing to do a lateral move from another agency, knowing that we have a promotional opportunity that might not exist at their existing agency. And given that my position, the human resources manager position, now oversees public relations in addition to HR and risk management, we're proposing to change my title from HR manager to administrative services manager at the same existing pay grade, no change in pay grade.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Is there a motion? I'll second. That's moved by Director Johnson, seconded by Director Hamilton to approve the current pay scale recommendations. All those in favor on a roll call vote?
Director Gasca,
Aye.
Director Hamilton,
Aye.
Director Johnson, Director Mack,
Aye.
Director Townsend Smith.
Aye.
Rainbow Municipal Water District Annex of the 2023 San Diego County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Very well said. So this is an important resolution to formally adopt the district's annex to the San Diego County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. We have staff members who've been working for the past couple of years closely with San Diego County Office of Emergency Services to develop the plan, working with various departments here to draft the plan in compliance with the requirements of both Cal OES and FEMA. So the plan has been reviewed. It's been pre-submitted several months ago to Cal OES and FEMA and pre-approved pending the board's adoption of a resolution formally adopting this policy. And the benefit to the district of joining the multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan is that it will allow us to apply for grant funding in order to implement some of the mitigation efforts identified in the plan. So there were three primary risks. Each risk was classified regarding the severity and likelihood of occurrence. And so the three highest risks were wildfire, drought, and extreme weather events. And so when the district wants to apply for grant funding for any of the risk and mitigation efforts, having this plan adopted and joining the county's plan will allow us to be eligible for those grants in the future. And this would be joining the county's 5-year plan that was adopted in February 2023. And then there will be another update in 2028, and the board will have to re-adopt our plan in 2028. But any minor changes like staff changes and changes in the mitigation efforts we've already accomplished will be updated annually without a requirement of a board action.
I have a question. Are you referring to federal and state and county grants that was inclusive of all?
I believe these are mostly FEMA grants that are then funneled through and processed through the state and county level. So our primary contact here is the San Diego County Office of Emergency Services, but then they worked with 18 cities and other local districts here in order to create the multi-jurisdictional plan, and they submit it to Cal OES, and then they submit it to FEMA. So all of those parties had to pre-approve this plan, and there could be grant funding from any one of those.
To join this group, is there a fee involved?
No. So we have two options to do this. We can either create our own entire plan from scratch, or we can create this annex that adds on to the overall county plan. So it would be very cumbersome and probably require very expensive consultants to do it all ourselves from scratch. It's much more effective from a staff resources standpoint to join the county plan. And 18 cities and other special districts have joined the county plan. The county is applying for grant funding for a consultant to help all of these multi-jurisdictional agencies prepare their hazard mitigation plans for the 2028 renewal. They didn't get that done for this renewal, so it was all done by internal staff for most of these agencies. But we have already submitted our letter of intent to join the multi-jurisdictional plan in 2028 so that they can include us, so that we will have a grant-funded consultant help us with the process in 28.
Are there any, I don't know what word I want to use, controls on how grants are allocated? In other words, can we join this and we put in for a grant and the county goes, no, we don't want to put that one forward?
I'm not the grant expert. That's probably something that would have to be researched on a grant by grant basis. But
Okay.
I know that if we don't do this,
We're not eligible
we're
at
not
all.
eligible
Not even at the
for
table.
FEMA grant
Yeah.
to apply for these programs.
Okay, just hate to see another Sandag.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't think it's quite like that.
Yeah. And at least we're not paying in this case, at least directly. Do I have any further discussion?
Well, I think to that point, though, we are closer to the urban wildland interface than some urban area and things like that. So, the mitigations that we can do helps protect the
There,
people west of us.
our priority potentially. Any other further discussion?
No.
Is there a motion? I move we approve the application.
I'll say.
Second, yeah.
Tie.
Moved by Director Hamilton, seconded by Director Townsend Smith. Roll call, please.
Director Gasca,
Aye.
Director Hamilton,
Aye.
Director Johnson, Director Mack,
Aye.
and Director Townsend Smith.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 24, discussion and possible action regarding execution of a joint use agreement, JUA, between Rainbow Municipal Water District and San Diego Gas and Electric.
Thank you. Wanted to introduce Wayne Dollarhide. Did I pronounce it correct? He is with a representative of Bonzo Oaks Development. He's here in observation of the board meeting, and if the board has any technical questions that I'm unable to answer, I'll be phoning my friend over here. Oh, David, when did you walk in? David, I didn't even see David. Also, David Pallinger in the audience. This action item is, as stated, a joint use agreement between SDG&E and the district. So in most cases, the board sees the district granting an easement to another entity. In this case, the developer is granting two agencies a mutual agreement. What happened is where the district had its existing water facilities through what we call backcountry. Now a subdivision is going in. Those existing water lines are being abandoned and relocated into roadways. These roadways are private. SDG&E and other utilities are coming in. So as we've quit claimed or moved easements, swapped locations, whatever we've done, in this case, when the developer came to us, SDG&E wanted to have the senior rights for the easement, even though they didn't have existing easements. The district having existing easements said, we're not going to relinquish senior rights. I don't know, months and months and months of back and forth between the two entities. We finally said, how about a joint use agreement? We don't have to ask you permission to go work on our facilities, and vice versa. SDG&E, you don't have to ask the district to go work on your facilities. It's been reviewed by the general manager and our legal counsel. This is best for all. There's no fiscal impact for it, and it allows the water and sewer lines to be in an easement. It also be shared with SDG&E and their facilities, separation and all that, of course, but it's in a private roadway. So it's a bit unique in what we normally do. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and staff is asking the board to approve option 1.
Okay. Chad, in looking at the map and trying to understand, I guess, the joint use, the original easement, our easement, extend over into where SDG, because it looks like they've just laid alongside our easement in the maps, and for the most part, there's crossovers and
so
things.
We had the existing easements, which we no longer needed in most parts. It was quit claimed, and this is kind of like Alfred and I owe each other money. Who's gonna? He has to sign, and I have to pay. It's an effort of good faith. And so when this easement was granted and swapped, for lack of a better term, it was then determined SDG&E also needed the same, like you're saying, that overlap. And so with us, we could either allow SDG&E to come in, but in that case, they wanted the senior rights on the easement.
So that's really the only discussion that was here, and then we've solved that with a cooperative use.
Correct. Director Johnson?
Was this discussed in engineering and operation?
This was not. This has been in the works for, again, months, if not longer. And when we met on June 7th at Engineering and Operations, we had not yet finalized it. We did inform the committee that there would likely be an agenda item at today's board meeting, but it was not discussed.
Yeah, I'd chime in and say that, that it was presented that way, that it would be coming up to the board. So engineering was aware.
And I think that there's some time sensitivity to it, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Pallinger.
As with everything that David brings to us. Do you want the microphone?
Go to the microphone, otherwise we don't get you.
Thank you, Chad. This is a very limited scope on the joint use. There's one place where the lines cross and another place for about 40 or 50 feet. So it's not over the entire project. It's a very limited scope where this JUA covers. And I have to tell you, Chad has been great to work with in figuring this out, because anytime SDG&E is involved, the complexity is multiplied times about 1,000.
I fully.
One question.
You're not in Caltrans next to a Caltrans.
I'm having an electric pole replaced tomorrow between 10 o'clock at night and 6 o'clock in the morning, right outside my bedroom.
Oh, lovely. What's that, Meg?
Yeah, where the power crosses, I assume it's our water line.
That's correct.
Is the power above our line or below?
Power would be above.
Yeah.
We never have water above power.
Right.
And that
Yes,
only
sir.
occurs in one or two locations.
One location in this
One
case.
location. Yeah.
And generally, when they have those crossings, they'll use the red slurry too, won't they?
That's correct.
So it's
So that-
just a one.
One crossing and then there's a parallel section
Okay.
for a number of
Okay,
feet,
thank you.
but it's very limited.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Again, I want to thank district staff. They're magnificent to work with of all jurisdictions. This is one of the easiest to work with and we really appreciate that.
We don't roll over though.
No, they're tough. Staff, very, very tough, but they're incredibly professional and responsive.
Facilitate development, but don't give away the farm.
Yeah,
That's the motto.
in all of my conversations and correspondence, David representing the developer and Wayne, listen, I hear what the district needs, but SDG is saying this is a no-go, and it's just a lot of back and forth until we can finally come to some sort of mutual compromise that work for all parties.
And we obviously had legal counsel on both sides.
And SDG&E is fine with this. Good.
Yes, sir.
So we have agreement on everybody's part. Any further discussion?
I'd make a motion to approve option 1.
Second.
Moved by Director Gasca, seconded by Director Johnson. Roll call.
Director Gasca,
Aye.
Director Hamilton,
Aye.
Director Johnson, Director Mack,
Aye.
and Director Townsend Smith. Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 24A, discussion and possible action opposing AB 399, formerly AB 330, which has to do with the change in the definition of voting districts in the County Water Authority Act.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we didn't get a full memo out on this because this thing's been moving very quickly. But in May, the Water Authority caused a legislator in Encinitas to introduce AB 530, which previously was as I mentioned, I believe last month, a
Climate change.
bill
Yeah.
that got gutted and amended to be a way to try to force a Water Authority wide vote on the detachment. Should LAFCO approve the detachment? In the state law is very clear now that should the commission approve it, the election for confirmation by voters will be held separately, one vote in Rainbow Service Area and one vote in Fallbrook Service Area. Not satisfied with that, and maybe because they chose a poor vehicle, AB 530 didn't get out of the committees and didn't get out of the assembly. So the Water Authority had to shift and find a new bill that had been already through the assembly and was in the Senate, AB 399. AB 399 began its life as a bill to require certain record keeping and data monitoring on police chases. Well, they convinced another legislator from the Bay Area to give up that bill and then hand it over to Assemblymember Berner from Encinitas, who then gutted that bill and produced a new bill, AB 399. Well, it's the same number, but replaced it with the same language that was in AB 530. And so in addition to that, the Water Authority informed LAFCO, and LAFCO documented this in their process that they held a couple of weeks ago, that they intend to put this through as an urgency bill. So an urgency bill is something that doesn't follow the normal course of action for a bill. Bills usually get worked on during the summer and then, the all year, and then the governor signs them, in the fall, and they become active January 1st. Well, in order to attempt to do an end run on LAFCO, who was then scheduled to meet on August 7th, the Water Authority converted this one to an urgency bill. So an urgency bill could be rushed through the Assembly and the Senate and put on the governor's desks in July sometime, potentially, if they could maneuver it that way. Urgency bills are a little different in the California Constitution. They specify they're supposed to be about health and safety and immediate things. Of course, we believe there's nothing about this that would meet that criteria in the Constitution, but nonetheless, they move forward. That is one of it also requires a 2/3 vote in both the Assembly and the Senate to get it to the governor's desk, which, the Democrats control 2/3 majorities, but they're not massive majorities, and especially in the Senate. And I don't know that it's a universally accepted thing. A number of other water districts have come out against this. I know Ramona sent a letter in. I know that Sweetwater, I believe, will be doing it, and a few others are coming. What I wanted to do was to get authorization from this board to agree to formally oppose AB 399, and that would allow me as a general manager to use some of my spending authority, not a massive amount, to engage with the folks we need to work on in Sacramento. If it was a normal bill that took longer, I could talk to our local reps. I could maybe go up there ourselves, but this thing might be done in the next couple of weeks, and we have a time sensitivity to it. I don't know that if the bill passes, it's even going to apply, but it's our intention to work with our other colleagues who are opposing it. Today, I got an email from the executive officer of Riverside County LAFCO, who has come out against it. San Diego County LAFCO has come out against it. Cal LAFCO has come out against it. The United States Marine Corps is opposed to the way this is being done, because they are disadvantaged because they pay water authority rates, but they take delivery of water from Orange County. They don't touch the water authority pipelines at all in any way, shape, or form. And so it's on their list to say, hey, why are we paying all this extra money when we don't get service from you people at all? It was just a fluke of geography that somehow they got added to the water authority a long time ago and never had a connection. And so it'll be stunning to us to see if the Assembly and Senate are to ignore the pleas of the Marine Corps, LAFCOs, Cal LAFCO, and shove this thing through. But there's considerable political weight being thrown around by the Water Authority and the mayor's office in the city of San Diego, who is technically the sponsor of this. It's another effort by the city of San Diego to make the Water Authority more like Sandag, to where city of San Diego runs the roost and the rest of us are left holding the bag. And so what I'd like to see if this board could, and I don't have an action letter, someone can make a motion to formally oppose AB 399, or it's whatever it turns into, because it's already changed once. And then if I get that approval, then I can take the steps necessary to do something we don't normally do, and hire lobbyists up in Sacramento who's on the ground there. I've talked to a few. I have a meeting, another one on Thursday, find the right people to help us get meetings with the right legislators to help run this thing off its tracks.
Any additional questions or comments?
I'd make a motion that we formally oppose the legislation.
Just a minute, Meg, we have a question from the audience.
Oh, okay.
Not really a question, but Fallbrook Water District voted yesterday to support their Jack Beebe and spending, no amount, whatever necessary to stop this
Well, it's
bill.
not going to be $1 zillion,
$1,
but it's
yeah.
not going to be zero either.
Yeah.
My guess is 5 or 10 grand.
Thank you, because that's my question. Neighboring districts.
Yeah.
So proper that.
Right.
Put something out for our lobbyists.
Well, we've had
Well,
some discussions on cost sharing. But
And Tom mentioned that there's a number of other water districts in the county that are opposing it as well.
yeah,
And so together.
Right. Well,
Mhm.
to get enough voices heard, I imagine, when you look at this, because the Democrats hold the majority and the city of San Diego, and so the urban areas are mainly Democratic areas, the outlying areas in San Diego County, the Republican areas. And so we need to peel some Ds from somewhere. But there's a whole lot of water districts in LA and Orange County that can't stand the water authority because they've made enemies everywhere. So having people who have the connections into those regions to be able to find a few Ds to pull off the list will be helpful. So it's politics at that point. It's counting noses and trying to get votes. And it's sad that we have to waste our time with this, but this, they've already delayed the detachment by bringing this up. That's one of the things that caused this thing to move to August originally and then back to July. And I just want to get it off the table.
Meg, you want to go ahead with your motion then?
Yeah, I'd make a motion that we formally oppose the legislation in whatever shape it takes.
So motion to oppose and any form of modification of the voting rights within the County Water Authority Act regardless of what bill number is assigned to
Well,
it.
I mean, I assume it's going to stay with this one, but I thought that was-
I'd like to add and authorize the general manager to spend reasonable funds in lobbying against this bill.
Yep, agree to that amendment.
You agree to the
I'll,
second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so moved by Director Gaskus, seconded by Director Mack. Roll call.
Director Gasca,
Aye.
Director Hamilton.
Aye.
Director Johnson. Director Mack.
Aye.
And Director Townsend Smith.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, discussion and possible action regarding CSDA Board of Directors elections for seat C, as in Charlie.
Okay, so this is the annual election that's coming up for the there's 3 candidates, as is in your board packet. Arlene Schaefer, who's been in there for some time, forever, yeah.
Forever.
Al Niederhood and John Skerbellis. Skerbellis is from Rubidoux, which is up near Riverside, and Niederhood is director from Modoc Municipal Water District of Orange County. You know, we've had candidates run against Arlene before.
Twice.
And she's, you know, I'm surprised that she's running again. But you know, she's held that seat for a long time. You know, there's some commonality between this district and Rubidoux, because the Water Authority just put Rubidoux through hell related to them trying to make a connection, get their Met water through a different wholesaler, and they're turning it into kind of the crazy show that we went through. And Modoc is the big Met wholesaler in Orange County. So I don't know. I mean, I've met Arlene a number of times at conferences. I don't know these other folks at all. So we don't have a specific recommendation.
Mac, do you have any comment?
I would say, Arlene's a very nice lady. I have seen over the last couple of years. He's kind of deteriorated a little bit. It might be better to move on with somebody else. That's all I can say.
Who's the candidate from Rubidoux?
Skerbellis.
Skerbellis, yeah.
I'd make a motion to support John Skerbellis.
I'll second that.
Roll call, any discussion? Roll call.
Director Gasca,
Aye.
Director Hamilton,
Aye.
Director Johnson,
Dang.
Me too. Abstain.
Director Mack,
Aye.
and Director Townsend Smith.
Abstain.
Thank you.
So 3 ayes and 2 abstentions. Then that motion was made by Director Gasca and seconded by Director Mack, for the record. Okay, discussion and possible adoption of resolution 23-13, congratulating the Santa Fe Irrigation District SFID on its 100th anniversary.
So I attended the event last week because it was on the 21st, and so we're a little tardy with our resolution. Other people did put that, but they had this big 1 and 0 and 0 100 on there that were kind of 3D paper objects, but different people were signing it. When I went over to sign it, I was right under Tasha Berner's rep who was there. So I signed mine just AB 399 with a little circle and a strikeout right under her name. I think they'll figure out who that was later. I just put it on YouTube. So there you go. But yeah, they 100 years they've been there, and I think we did one of these earlier for Vista Irrigation District.
Yeah, Vista last
at
time.
100. And so it's quite an accomplishment. You know, they've got a real challenge there because they've got local water from Lake Hodges for a long time. But now the dam is deteriorated to the point where it's going to be a massive infusion of cash, and they're going to have they had a really challenging rate hearing in Rancho Santa Fe. Even though those folks are really rich, the rates went up substantially more than ours will because they've lost their local supply, and it'll cost them probably $70 to $100 million to get it back. And that's tough math right there. So, but you know, the staff recommendation is to support a resolution that we'll send along to them in a little frame. Too late for the event, but a good sentiment anyway.
I move we do the recognition. Move Director Hamilton, seconded by Director Johnson. Roll call.
Director Gasca,
Aye.
Director Hamilton,
Aye.
Director Johnson, Director Mack,
Aye.
and Director Townsend Smith.
Aye.
Item number 27, board member request for authorization to attend upcoming meetings, conferences, or seminars.
I think the next big one coming up is CSDA at the end of August, but that we don't need specifics on that. So anybody have any that they'd like to attend that isn't on our list of pre-approved ones?
And the CSDA is on
The
this.
Special District Leaderships Academy is in October.
Ah, okay.
That's the one that would be off our list.
I cannot attend in October, but I would like to attend.
Okay.
What number, I'm sorry, what number are we on in the?
27, you're right. Did I miss something?
I don't know. I'm looking at board member request for authority, check signing authority.
Oh, you might have the one that didn't have the 24A in it. Hold on, Don, no.
No, I had 20.
28 is the consent calendar item for, oh, if you're using the sidebar on your iPad,
Yeah.
there's no document related to the request for authorization. So there's no,
Oh,
if
okay.
there's no little arrow there, there's no document. So there's,
Got it.
Okay. We're ready. Meg, your question was answered?
I think so.
Okay, consent calendar items, item number 28, approval and resolution of,
well, for consent calendar, you can either take both of them at once, or if somebody wants to pull one, we don't need to go through what they are.
oh, okay, well,
So
I always.
if anybody
get
wants to
confused.
pull a consent item, let us know. Otherwise, we'll get a motion and a second on both together. We put on these ones, we put ministerial housekeeping type items or things that are just procedural on there that, but if a board member feels they want to discuss it, we pull it and then we can vote on them separately.
I move that we accept the consent items as a unit package. Second by Director Gasca.
Director Gasca,
Aye.
Director Hamilton.
Aye.
Director Johnson. Aye. Director Mack,
Aye.
Director Townsend Smith.
Aye.
Thank you.
Board information items. Detachment update.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm doing this for, I don't know how many people we have online. Do we have any viewers online? Watching? All right, that's fine. Because some of you have already heard this, so I apologize for the
Repeating
duplicate.
yourself.
At the June 5th meeting of LAFCO, that was a long day, 7+ hour meeting. There was a lot of testimony from a lot of folks. It was great seeing a great turnout from the Fallbrook and Rainbow and Bonsall area down there. A lot of farmers and other folks talking about the challenge of water. The Water Authority trotted out their usual gang of opponents, which consisted mainly of people calling in who were political heads of labor unions. The Stagecraft Union is very concerned about detachment. Another union where apparently they didn't go over the script with them beforehand, but every time the word LAFCO came up, they said LAFCO. It was kind of comical. And I think in a telling point in the Water Authority telling LAFCO that this is an existential threat to all the other 22 member agencies, only one showed up. And that was a brand new GM who was showing up, and he said, my board didn't tell me to come here. I just came on my own because I thought it was important. But he was, where is everybody else? Well, they didn't bother showing up. So I think they can all do math and realize that the Water Authority's current proposed rate increase is 7 or 8 times higher than the impact of detachment without even without an exit fee. With an exit fee, it's an infinitely higher thing. So at that committee meeting, the commission meeting, they couldn't come to a conclusion. There was some weird theatrics at the end when a motion and second were made. There was a recess called immediately by a commissioner, and then when they came back, she proceeded to confuse things matters further. At which point, Joel Anderson suggested they had been a long day and they continue the item at that time to the August meeting. Subsequent to that, LAFCO staff met with the author of the bill that we just discussed earlier, who indicated they were going to push it through in an urgency bill to try to get it done super fast, at which point Jim Desmond didn't like that. So he called an emergency meeting on LAFCO that happened on the 13th or 14th of June. Let me make sure I get my, it was the 14th of June, at which point the commission both took a position in opposition to AB 530, AB 399, as well as moved up the hearing date to July 10th. So now the continuation of the item on detachment is now not August, but it's July 10th, 8 a.m. downtown. At that point, we expect the commission to complete its discussion and potentially vote finally after 3.5 years. One other thing of significance, last week at the Water Authority Board meeting, as I mentioned, they failed to get a quorum in their closed session and failed to get authorization to sue LAFCO, of which I'm sure LAFCO was quite pleased to see the Water Authority planning to sue them. I'm not sure why they choose to continue kicking LAFCO in the shins right before commission meetings. Seems to be pretty poor political planning to me, but I can't speak for what's motivating them. I think that, and I think that was Chair Hamilton's initial impression of the Water Authority, his first meeting down there, is that lawyers lead the way there. And I think the lawyers see an opportunity for, more action, I guess. Yeah.
Billable hours.
Alfred never does that. He tries to get us out of lawsuits. So, it's hopefully the next month at the detachment update, we can report out that, they've successfully approved our applications. But I don't want to jinx anything. So I can't speak to exactly how the votes will go, but it's looking more positive for us than it has in the past. And I think that's in most part due to hard work over the last 3.5 years, but boy, the Water Authority sure gave us a couple of assists right at the end. So thanks. But that's my report.
Thank you. Item number 31, any questions? Yes, go ahead.
So assuming that they do vote yes in July, then what happens after that?
Well, we hope it's not the litigation phase, because that's what the Water Authority is signaling. When they have a board action item to initiate litigation, that usually means they intend to sue somebody. And exactly who that somebody is, it really can't be us. It would likely be LAFCO. We'd have to take a look at that. But after that, there's a whole different series of steps procedural steps LAFCO will make. There's a reconsideration hearing. There's some different stuff where things get completed. But then after that, we'll start scheduling the elections and working on the election language to hold the elections here. And so that will probably take a couple months. I wouldn't imagine we'll be calling for an election before the end of fall for that election to happen early next year. My guess, we don't want to wait till all the way to the next fall to go into the general election, but we got to weigh what the costs are. And is that going to be a mail ballot? Is it going to be in person and mail? All those sorts of details have yet to be ironed out. I think that rather than going through that exercise before we got the commission vote, staff want to just say, all right, we're moving forward with this. If so, we'll work out these mechanics. With any luck, a year from now or so, we'll be detached. Fingers crossed.
Item number 31, receive and file information and financial items. Any discussion or comments? List of suggested items for agenda items for the next regular board meeting.
Tracy probably won't have any.
I have a wastewater loan proposal.
Okay. We don't have anything specific right now. A lot of stuff work was done and getting to today. And so see what happens.
There's a letter that came to us from one of the people in my division. Her name is Lisa Herman, about crop swap.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
It would be good to dig into that, get some staff to get information on that. And then, maybe we could get a input from you guys.
Yeah, we
on-
can definitely get a report put together on that.
Meg, can you explain what the crop swap is about? Because I read that, but I don't know anything about it.
Tracy can.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
went,
Hayden and I went to the meeting on that at Rancho.
I went to the end of the meeting. You were there for the whole meeting.
I think
So
was there.
it's a grant program where they got funding, I believe, from 2 or 3 different funding sources where someone applies and they can get up to 15,000 for trading out the high use crops for a lower use crop. So you would trade out avocados for, say, wine grapes, or there's a few different criteria you can do. Or you can regraft avocado trees to more drought tolerant trees. So we're looking at doing a joint program with some of the other water districts in the area to implement that here.
What's the negative of that when I read it?
They'll use less water, so.
Well,
That's the negative? Oh, okay.
yeah,
Negative
the
is that-
negative,
that getting the federal money is always the challenging part, and it takes a hurry.
Yeah.
The real challenge for the grower too is you suddenly go to zero production while you swap out crops. So you may have a 2 or 3 year period in which you have no income.
You also commit to using a
Or-
lower budgeted amount of water for, I believe it's 10 years, and that's attached to the property at the county level.
yeah, there's I guess, a document that was developed by Rancho. I typed in crop swap, Rancho California Water District, Temecula, and selected one of the links, and it's a pretty detailed document. So, but I didn't have time to
It'd be
read
good
it.
to have a briefing.
Yeah, it'd be good.
Yeah,
to
we
get,
can definitely, I can get Rob, who's the
analysis.
GM at Rancho, to come down.
Oh,
I actually
great
talked to him at the
idea.
SFID thing, and he told me he just secured more money for it. I don't know if that was since you guys had been to that event, but he said $5 million that can be spread around. That's good, but one of our challenges is that the terrain in some parts of Rancho California's service area is such that grapes might be a better option, but here where some of the avocados grow is not necessarily going to be a good grape producing area. Just the access and the steepness of it is difficult. We need to make sure that we can have rootstock swaps be the program. And a lot of growers are using 20-25% more water to push salts through the soil, that if they can get some salt tolerant rootstocks. Now, there's also been some folks talking about high density planting. But I was speaking to another grower who says, no, we should go the other way and do even lower density planting. But it just reduces the cost overall structure of what you got to invest into it and the time to get the trees. And it's hard to get trees these days. And as bad as it is in the avocado business, there's not that much availability of new stock. You have to wait a couple of years in a lot of cases. So we'll see. But adding money into the picture is definitely going to help a lot of people. There's something Jack and I have been talking to those folks up there for a while, but they were mainly focused on transition away from avocado and citrus into wine. We got to morph it a little bit to tailor the needs of this region, but we're in.
I have an agenda item. If we could have an update on our grant process progress.
Yep, we can have Amelia dial in.
Absolutely.
Good idea. Thank you. Any other topics? Any other questions or comments?
Thank you, everyone. This really,
Oh, wait a second. Yeah. Weren't we supposed to get some kind of an update on the status of our look at pure water?
That's coming, the August meeting.
Oh, that's gonna be August? Okay.
that's what Tracy and I we're going to that on Thursday.
That's the
This is
October-
this is a district specific project.
The imported return flow recovery project.
Similar though.
would you like to go ahead now since Meg didn't know you were speaking?
Oh, didn't have her microphone on, huh?
No, she didn't. I turned it off.
Uh-oh.
Oh. was on-
Oh.
I just
Yeah.
want to thank everyone for my medallion. That's very special to me. Thank you. Coming from the military background, this is something that we're very
Don't
familiar
get caught
with.
without your challenge coin.
That's right. So thank you. I have my coin.
We are adjourned.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, you guys have a great week.
Question.
Say-